thanks everyone for being here. And the first item on the agenda would be consider approval of the Plan Commission meeting minutes of March 11th of 2019. I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
Move to approve.
Second.
And there's a motion by Bartlett and a second by, was it Jensen? Jensen to approve the minutes. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None opposed. That carries. Item 3 is council representative report. And Alderperson Bartlett, would you like to do that?
Yep, I guess, of course, we just had elections, so next month there may be different members from the council represented. Just to let you know, I guess the other big one was the public participation plan that was pushed back, and that's on the agenda for later tonight, so we'll get into that at that time. So, and that's all I have.
Okay, thank you. And I'd like to thank Alderperson Bartlett for serving on the Plan Commission. He's decided not to continue next session, but we appreciate the time. He did a great job on here and certainly be missed, but it's an opportunity for somebody else to come in here, and I respect the commitment that it takes. You were on quite a few committees this last year.
Thanks.
Item number 4 is staff reports, status of current developments.
Just a quick highlight. You noticed in the packet the number of single-family starts was down. Year to date, we'd only had 3 at the time of this report being written. I'm happy to hear or let you know that there's been several others that have stopped in and taken out permits. So we've got 3 or 4 more new ones underway already. So much closer in line with what we had last year at this time.
Any questions about the staff report?
I have a question. Any word from the hotel?
Yes.
What's going on there?
There is a word.
You guys are here. Do you want to answer that, or would you like Rodney to? Okay.
We're hearing groundbreaking in May is what they're shooting for. So solidifying some changes to their updating of some permits and stuff, but looks like they're getting ready to break ground in May.
Okay.
Excellent.
Until dirt turns, we don't know for sure, but that's the plan.
Any other questions about the report? Did you have one, Greg?
Just was wondering about the Todd Nelson, the item 4 on there. I'm assuming that's the landscaping that he's still working on?
Since the last meeting, I think there's been another citation issued, if that's what you're looking for.
Kind of.
Any other questions about the report? Okay, we'll move on to number 5. Hopefully I pronounce everybody's name correctly this evening. We have a request by Dave Rysop for extraterritorial land division approval at 1494 Pleasant Hill Road, town of Dunkirk.
This ETJ is on Pleasant Hill Road. I'm sorry, I don't have it up on the screen yet, but it is in your packet. It's outside of our short-term or even our long-term growth plan for the city. It is larger than the minimum lot size or the maximum lot size that would normally be recognized in our ETJ regulations. However, there is an opportunity to grant an exception. The resolution is actually written to grant that exception, subject to the town and county approval.
Are there any questions about the ETJ? Otherwise, I would entertain a motion for approval.
Motion approved.
Motion by Bartlett. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Caravello. Any questions on it? Hearing none. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None opposed. That carries. Item number 6 is a request by Elizabeth Reinstead for extraterritorial land division approval at 1924 County Highway A, town of Dunkirk. How far out is that one?
It's within our ETJ area, but it's outside of our long-term growth plan as well. It does meet the standards for our ETJ area, and so there isn't an exception being requested as part of this request. The resolution is written in support of, subject to the town and county approval.
Any questions on this one? Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion. Okay.
And I'll
Motion
second.
by Robinson and a second by Caravello. Any discussion on this one? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None opposed. That carries. I'm wondering if we should jump around here a little bit, or should we just keep going?
It's entirely up to you, Mayor.
Let's go to number 9. I think there's people waiting here, if you guys are okay with that.
Sure.
Number 9 is proposed ordinance amendments to establish requirements for the keeping of bees in certain zoning districts. Code section 6-2, 78-105, 78-206, parent 8, parent Z, and zoning code appendix C. And we do have a need for a public hearing. Would you like to?
I'll give just a brief overview.
Okay.
The modification to the ordinance has been discussed in previous planning commission venues. We think this reflects the conversation that took place at the planning commission. That's why it's here for a public hearing tonight. As written, I'm currently recommending that there would not be there'd only be an initial first year inspection, but eliminating the license fee and inspections essentially. I'm sorry, actually no inspection initially. But if there's concern about a need for an inspection, we'd recommend that after you've passed the first one, you're likely going to conform to the site requirements. Obviously, if you're in violation of an ordinance, that would be something that we could still pursue if you have more chickens than what would be allowed by ordinance. It just wouldn't be by license or permit.
Any questions before the public hearing? Okay, so we'll close the regular meeting and then reopen for the public hearing. And I believe I have one person signed up to speak, and that would be John Thompson. You can come up to the microphone. You're at 200 South Madison Street?
That's correct.
All right, thanks for coming out tonight. It's all yours.
All right, thanks. I'm the one who's been pushing for this for a couple of years almost now. And I think the way this is drafted, it's fine. It's a great compromise. You could pass it as is, and I'd be fine with that. The only concern I have is about the wording of number 6, about this disposal of comb. When a beekeeper harvests the honey, not all the honey is removed from the frames. When it's harvested, there's going to be a slight film. And standard practice is to leave those frames out a distance from the hives, let the bees clean it out, and then they put away the frames when they're cleaned out. So the way this is worded, it's technically a violation if a guy does that, a beekeeper does that. But if you pass this the way it is, I mean, it could be like an unspoken understanding that it does not apply to such a thing as letting the bees clean out the frames.
Okay.
Oh, and as far as inspection and such, I'd be happy to show the inspectors what to look for, or I could volunteer to do it, because I'm very invested in this and having everything done correctly otherwise. So that's a possibility too, I guess.
Okay. Anything else you want to add?
That's pretty much it.
Okay, so what we'll do is we'll see if anybody else wants to speak. If they don't, we'll close the public hearing, and then we'll deliberate on the 2 points that you made and anything else that any of the commissioners may have come up with. Okay, thank you for coming out. And is there anyone else wishing to speak at the public hearing? Hearing none, we'll close the public hearing, and then we'll reopen our regular business. So we heard a couple things, and does anybody want to, Michael or Rodney, do you want to address those? Or so number 6 was the cleanup of the material after the hives are removed. Is that
Bee combs, yeah.
the bee combs? And I don't know that much about the bees, so maybe one of you guys can kind of help me understand this a little bit more. Or do you have any questions on it, or how we should handle it, or are you okay with the wording? Go ahead, Greg, and then
Yeah,
Matt.
I guess I was wondering why this was even in there, because I tried to do a little bit of research, and I do remember going across a paragraph somewhere, I can't remember exactly where, but it was talking about this actual procedure. And so I guess I'm wondering why we have this in here. Is it simply to facilitate a cleaner property, or you know, why is it in there?
It was probably from another code somewhere else.
From another code.
That Gregory had found.
I guess my question to John would be, how long would they need to be out? My question would be, how long do the combs usually sit out for the bees to take care of it? You mentioned that if you leave the comb out,
The bees usually need about 3 or 4 days to clean out the comb, and then the beekeeper puts the comb away for the season.
so if we gave it like a 2-week period,
Well, you could allow that, but it can't be any set period, you know, like from this day to this
from the
day.
time that gets out until you put it away, you'd like 2-week grace period, something like that?
Something like that, as long as it's variable, because sometimes a hive will make a lot of honey early in the season, and then there might be a second harvest later in the season. So, about 3 or 4 days per batch.
Did you have something?
Yeah, that was the same thing. I was wondering if there was a term for that. Is there a phrase or a term that's called, letting the bees clean that out, to include in the language?
Just let them have it. You know, there's no exact phrase for it.
I don't know, maybe having no more than 2 consecutive weeks,
Yeah,
variable
I'd say
times.
consecutive weeks, yeah. I'm trying to figure out just how to word that.
Anybody else have any thoughts or ideas? Go ahead.
Thanks. I just, trying to think of this from speaker's point of view, and the city's point of view, that we're gonna send somebody out after 2 weeks to see these certain things were done. I don't think, I guess I would say I don't think there's a need to add anything to the motion as it is.
Okay. So you're suggesting that we probably wouldn't go out unless there was a complaint? Exactly.
Beyond the honor system.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and we wouldn't really, by the time we get out there, it'll probably be cleaned up anyway.
Right. If you send a notice, it's 30 days.
Okay, there you go. So it'll be 30 days if we send a notice upon a complaint, so by then it'll be long gone. But I think it's okay to have something in there that would at least suggest that it's cleaned up and removed.
Sure. Home is
Okay
too
with
valuable
that.
to a beekeeper to throw away, so they always try to salvage it.
Okay. And did anybody else have any other thoughts or questions you want to add on that issue? And then the other thing is, who's going to do the inspections then? Is that something you'll do and the zoning will do? So that would probably be you, so
Office.
their office would take care of that, so you guys can maybe talk offline if you feel that you need some
Okay,
help
sure.
or training in that area. That's certainly a nice offer, we appreciate that.
That's what we're thinking. Can you give me any kind of timeline on how this would work? I mean, did it need like one reading at the council, or?
It's an ordinance, so it's generally 2 readings, so it would be on for 2 weeks from tomorrow for the first reading. The council could waive the rules, but generally we would have it at 2 consecutive meetings, so it would be approved, which would be the
May 14th.
May 14th is when it would be approved.
Okay,
Okay?
thank you.
All right, and you're more than welcome to speak at the council as well as you'd like. We have a public comment period at the beginning of the meeting.
Okay,
Okay?
thank you.
Thank you.
You want a motion?
Sure, that'd be great.
So on number 6 then, where we have the hive comma, and it says all materials shall promptly be disposed of in sealed container. I think we change that to all materials shall be disposed of within 2 weeks in a sealed container. Or disposed of in a sealed container within 2 weeks. How's that? That sounds better.
We can put it in there, but the question was the enforcement of that.
I don't know that is there much enforcement on it anyways?
Be a month. I mean, 30-day notice, so
It's
it
just a
would be.
standard.
So we don't really know if it's necessary to do anything with it.
That's what I mean, but at least this way, there's something set there.
Okay. All right, so you're gonna make a motion
I
with
would
that
make
change?
motion.
Did you get that?
Yep.
Okay. And then would there be a second?
Well, second.
Okay. Any more discussion on that one?
One suggestion I could make about that amending number part 6 is just change it to no become or similar materials may be disposed upon the grounds of the perry, and then delete the rest of the paragraph. Keeps it simple. And it doesn't mention the time limit on clean outs.
Are you okay with that? It's your motion.
Disposal on the ground. I think the intent of this is to basically do that, to make sure that things aren't just, that you're not messing up the art, that you're keeping things clean. That would accomplish it, I believe. So, I'm okay if you want to change it to that. It's up to the seconder.
Are you okay with that, Matt?
I guess, is that enforceable at all, the definition of disposed, if it's just laying there? How do you enforce something like that, I guess? I think the time limit would be something easier to enforce if we had to at some point. I guess would be the only concern I would have.
I think your motion is, I think the original motion
Just keep
is,
the original motion.
Okay,
yeah.
we'll do that.
It's going to accomplish it one way or the other.
And I think it'll be a non-issue, but I think
Yeah.
it gives us more ability if we leave it the way he put it in there. And if there's an issue and we hear about it, hopefully just a simple phone call will take care of it.
Yep.
All right?
All right.
Thank you. Any other, go ahead.
I guess I had one more question for Mr. Mattson, was it? What is the beekeeping season, if it goes through on the May 14th, does that cause any issues for
Generally, if you want a
establishing?
season, I could describe it as March 1st to February 28th.
If this doesn't pass till May 14th, does that cause issues with establishing bees for this season?
Well, it's mostly a matter of new beekeepers. Packages of bees, 2 or 3 pound packages of bees that they start with. I usually start a delivery in late March and through April.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, anything else on this one? All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None opposed, that carries. And we might as well go right to number 10.
You need to vote on the, as amended.
Well, I think he changed it. Your motion included the change already.
Well, I made a motion to amend.
There wasn't an original motion.
There wasn't an original motion, okay, then I guess we have to
Right.
make the original motion.
Right, that's what I was assuming we were voting
Okay.
on, the original motion with the language change. Is that-
That sounds good to me.
Okay, all right,
Now, if I could,
sure.
I would have objected to an amendment. I think it was fine like it was. So I was having trouble too, deciding if we were voting on an amendment or the original motion. I don't see anything wrong with what the gentleman's proposed, and I don't think we should amend it. So if we're going to, I'd like to have a chance to have that come before the,
Okay, all right. So the motion, so we didn't have an original motion. So my understanding is the original motion was with the new language. Now, if you,
I think to make it clean, first we'd have to have a motion to recommend to council, and then an amendment to that motion.
okay, we can do that. So do you want to make the motion to
I'd make the motion
recommend
to
as
recommend to
written?
council. No, because I think it has to go through, so like Tom said, you can vote one way or the other on the amendment. So first we have to have the recommendation to council, and I would make that motion. Then we need a second on that, and then I would make the corresponding amendment.
Okay. So you're going to make the
Yeah, I would make-
motion as it was written?
Motion as it was written.
Okay,
Okay.
Second?
okay.
Okay.
So
we got
any
that.
discussion on that? Hearing none.
No.
Now you want to make an amendment.
Now I would make the amendment
Okay.
to change section 6 to the verbiage that we had discussed.
Can you read the verbiage? Or,
He was just adding, within 2 weeks, disposed of within 2 weeks in a sealed container.
okay. Any questions on the amendment? Hearing none, all in favor of the amendment? Oh,
I'll second that one also.
Yeah,
Okay.
second, yeah.
No questions on the amendment. All in favor of the amendment, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
One opposed. Okay, so it takes us back to the original motion as amended. Any questions on that or comments? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None opposed, so it carries as amended. Okay. So then that'll take us to number 10, which is the proposed ordinance amendments for the keeping of chickens to sections 14-461, 78-105, and 78-206, parent 8, parent Y, and zoning code appendix C. And we have a public hearing on this one as well. Anything you want to review before the public hearing?
I think I captured the chicken dialogue the first time, so what I said last time was really meant for this part of the ordinance. Sorry.
All right, any questions before we go into public hearing? Hearing none, we'll close the regular hearing and then reopen for the public hearing. Is there anyone to wish to speak about this one at the public hearing? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing, reopen for regular business here. Any questions or motions on this one?
I make the motion to recommend to council.
There's a motion by Jensen,
Second.
second by Caravello. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None opposed. That carries. Thank you. Okay. So we'll probably see that in 2 weeks, both of them. That takes us back to item number 7, which is a request by Forward Development Group for approval of a public participation plan to amend the comprehensive plan related to Kettle Park West Phase 2. And this one here, as part of this plan, we were asked to put public comments on our agenda here. And you want to kind of update us on this, or would you like me to?
I wasn't at the council meeting the other night. Some of the council members here and Mayor Swadley were. Mayor Swadley worked to incorporate what he understood to be important stuff to personalize the public participation plan on behalf of the city. So we handed out 2 documents tonight that I'd like to walk through with you. I'd prefer to walk through them on the screen, but we're having technical difficulties. So I'm going to talk to you about the schedule first. I think this would be probably the easiest thing to focus on.
Yeah, just to give a little bit more overview. So what happened at the council for those of you that are not on council, is, as Rodney mentioned, they wanted some more specifics for this plan, for this development. And what we tried to do is listen. We had one person that spoke, Mr. Springman spoke, and then some of the other council members had some ideas, which we'll walk through in a moment. One of the things I heard was we wanted to have more specifics, not only for this plan, but future plans going forward. So there may be an opportunity for us to have a conversation at a later date on whether or not we feel there should be a policy for future developments. This one here is a little bit different because we already have an approved plan that's already in place, and what we're trying to do is amend the comp plan for the new components of the Phase 2 that Forward Development has been working on with us. So, for example, if we have a new development somewhere that's in the comp plan, but we haven't approved a plat, we may be asked by the council, or we may decide on our own to kind come up with a policy which I would assume would incorporate many of the things we're talking about here anyway. But maybe just have it in a more structured approach so we have more consistency going forward. So that was kind of the gist of the conversation at the council. Did I miss anything?
No, I covered it pretty well.
Okay, so go ahead, Rodney, you can
Sure.
kind of walk us through the changes here.
So in an effort to try to acknowledge a schedule that incorporates good public participation as well as a reasonable timeline, the draft schedule that's at your place tonight is slightly different than the one that was in your packet, but I'd like to walk through that with you because the very first item would be a public event, would be a special planning commission meeting. Part of the council's interest was having the city take ownership of the public participation planning process. By holding a special planning commission and hosting, if you will, the public event, we think that that helps to obtain that. That would be proposed to be April 22nd, so yet this month, we need to have a quorum of the plan commission because it would actually be a commission meeting. So I'd ask you to consider that as we look at this document. Likewise, the very next item is a regular plan commission meeting, and you'll see that it's shown as May 6th. Generally, our plan commission is the second Monday of the month. Well, the second Monday of May is May 13th. That's the week of Setna Mai. Mayor Swadley has to go as a member of the chamber to be part of a large dinner that evening and an introduction of the Setna Mai week. So recognizing his calendar, we're suggesting again, if you will, another alternate night. Instead of having a meeting on the 13th, if we would have a quorum, propose moving this date of the regular meeting up to May 6th. The subsequent items all fall on regular nights. A regular council meeting, we'd have the Joint Plan Commission and the council to consider or have a public hearing on the proposed plan amendment. On June 3rd, it's proposed that we'd have a public comment period at our plan commission, regular plan commission meeting. No, that's not right. That date's wrong. June 3rd is not the right date. The regular, June 10th. But it would just be the regular meeting where you're having the public comment period, and you'd consider adoption of the plan amendment and recommendation to council. On the council meeting on the 11th, public comment period, and then the council would accept the proposed amendment as the public hearing draft of the proposed plan amendment. And then they'd schedule the public hearing, the official public hearing that's required, not less than 30 days out, so it'd be set for July 23rd. Council meeting, regular council meetings on the 5th of June, or 25th of June, and the 9th of July would still have an open public comment period as they always do, where people could provide feedback on that draft plan. On July 23rd, the public hearing would be held at the council on the proposed plan amendment, and they would be able to consider the first reading of the ordinance on the proposed plan amendment. And at the following meeting on August 13th, you'd have the standard public comment period, but also you'd have the second reading and anticipated adoption of the ordinance on the plan amendment. That would put the comprehensive plan amendment into effect on the publication date of the 22nd of August. And I stepped through those kind of quickly. You can see that there were some dates. We tried to solidify them and also clarify the fact that the council and the plan commission have public comment opportunities at a number of meetings during this time frame where the public could provide input and feedback on the draft plan amendment documents. So I guess first of all, we need to see if the plan commission sees this as a challenge to have an April 22nd meeting. And likewise, if there's concern about moving the regular scheduled meeting date from May 13th to May 6th. So does anybody have, that's good.
Go ahead, Matt.
Questions, assume 6 o'clock start time for all of these?
Yes.
Is it the standard start times?
Yep.
Yep, that's what we thought. Go ahead.
Would there then be a, a closing time? Like, would we stay present until 8 PM or something of that nature, so that people would have enough time to
I would think,
offer comment, or?
I think that's a fair point.
On May
My
6th?
My recommend, for the public event on the 22nd, I think we would suggest an hour or an hour and a half. I mean, we'd have a presentation to start, so probably not less than an hour and a half. Try to be here from 6 to 7:30, and see if that would wrap up the discussion within that time frame.
The purpose of it is to get the information out earlier so people have time to review the materials and digest it, instead of traditionally what happened, maybe we had a public hearing like we did tonight on the item, and then we vote on it the same night. So the idea would give the community an opportunity to get the materials. They could write an article in the Hub about it, and then if they have any questions between the special meeting and the following meetings, they could solicit the questions to the council or to the planning commission, the plan commission, and we could have time to review that and provide the answers, and try to have multiple opportunities along the way for the public to come to the various meetings and have a chance to participate in the process. So that was kind of the rationale from the council, to add the event, and to add the public comment periods at the plan commission, which in the past we traditionally haven't done, unless it was required to have a public hearing like we did tonight. So that's the purpose of it. The main thing we're trying to do is figure out whether or not you guys think this makes sense, and if it fits with your schedules.
It's fine.
Fits yours? Okay. Anybody else have any thoughts or anything? I know it's extra meetings, which we don't like to pile on extra meetings, but this is kind of important that we keep this thing moving and give the community an opportunity to weigh in on it and learn more about the project, which we think is a much improved over the initial project that was approved a couple years ago.
April 22nd again is a Monday?
Yes.
Go
If I
ahead.
could just ask, are we suggesting that we, if we don't have a lot of participation, that all the people on the council stay for a certain period of time no matter what? Or can we, that just seems, I mean, there's 8 of us. If it's an hour and a half, that's 12 hours. If one person shows up, I hope they would be more, but I think it should also add, at the discretion of the chair, that we could close the meeting if there appears to be nobody else speaking.
We were talking just for the April 22nd meeting?
Mm-hmm.
That's fine.
Yeah, we can do that.
To me.
Yeah, I mean, we want to make productive use of everybody's time and balance that with the needs of those in the community that want to participate in the process.
And I would think somebody could certainly call in and say, I can't be there till this time. I mean, we could accommodate them, but to sit for an hour and a half with nobody there beyond us would not necessarily need to be done.
Go ahead, Mr. Farm.
I certainly can empathize with that. The challenge is how we're presenting that public meeting to the public, because a lot of times you can present it as a sequenced event that you need to be there when it starts because there's going to be a presentation. But if it's just a comment period, there might be people who work till 7 and think, okay, if I can come any time and share my comment, then we may close and leave, and they show up at 7:15 thinking that the window is 7 to 7:30. So I think that's the challenge, is it being presented as a sequenced event that you should be there at the beginning, or is it being presented as show up anytime?
I would envision there being a presentation. I mean, the developers and the city would have a presentation of materials at the outset of the meeting, with opportunity for input and comments to follow, as well as comments, opportunities at all these other locations and times for.
So as long as
their
that's, I think, communicated,
Yeah.
then I'm all for
Yeah.
that proposal, because
Yeah.
just so we're not getting the public confused.
Yeah.
Right, because the purpose of the presentation is for those that are interested to understand what the initial plan was that was approved and what the changes have been made in order to have the need for the comp plan amendment. And I think we can easily illustrate them with a few slides on a PowerPoint and some explanation of kind of what the story is, where we started and how we got here, and then find out what the temperature of our constituents are. I think that's the purpose of it. And like I said, the main other point was just to give people multiple opportunities to weigh in on it, because if somebody's not available on the 22nd, we don't want to discourage them for participating because they had a scheduling conflict. We want to give them more opportunities to present, or if they were there and they have some questions or thoughts or ideas, there's still time for us to hear those ideas and incorporate them in the plan before we approve it or before we send it to the city council.
And
Times.
those materials, you know, the PowerPoint and anything relating to that, all that stuff can be, or is planned to be put on the website?
Yeah,
Yep.
presentation materials can end up on the website.
Okay.
Right, and as are we gonna walk through
Yep.
the language next, and some of the more detailed comments that we heard at the city council will be incorporated into the next phase of this discussion. And I would let you know, I did have a meeting with Mr. Springman, after a couple emails back and forth to clarify some of the points that he made as well, and try to incorporate that into here as well.
So kind of moving on to, if you will, the actual participation plan document that's in your packet, sections 1 through 5. And credit the mayor for having spent a fair amount of time trying to incorporate what he understood to be some guidance from the council. In addition to that, the developers have included essentially this item that was handed out tonight as additional points that we may or may not feel appropriate to consider adding to the text or modifying the text of the participation plan. If it's okay with the commission, we could have Jim Bricker give an overview of some of the thoughts that he had related to these alternate language items. Is that acceptable to the commission? Sure.
Good evening. As Rodney said, we were kind of working together on the text on how you wanted to actually describe this participation plan as it would pertain just to this modification for Kettle Park West Phase 2, if you will. So I was going through that, and I think it's probably a legitimate concern to, at least for this project, to explain a little bit of the history and to say, okay, the plan amendment right now that is being contemplated pertains really to just changing land use patterns along Oak Opening Drive and relocating the park. Those are the two big items in general terms. And that the reason you'd want to say something like that out in the maybe what you'd call the recitals about this plan is to just give people a comfort level of, you know, this is the part that we're changing. We're not dealing with a whole different land use out there. We're not putting in industrial, you know, those bigger scheme things. We're just trying to tweak the way the land use, well, essentially along Oak Opening Drive is working. That's where we had, the original plan had a substantial amount of higher density housing through there, and that's being converted into a new small lot, single family alley service homes, and that park is relocating per the park committee's kind of directive to a different spot. That's the gist of the plan itself. So that kind of sets the stage for expectations of what this plan amendment would get to. And that's, as I was just, sort of free association, just writing down a little bit of these thoughts and ideas, and it paired with some of the things that Mayor Swadley had put together in his outline of whatever section that was. I forget, 3 or 4 in the original version. So that's really what I was trying to get to with this language. And it's fine with me, whichever way you want to work with.
Does anybody have any questions or thoughts about what was in the packet and then what we have in front of us? If it's enough, too much, need more? Go ahead, Matt.
I guess the one thing I didn't see that came up in council was when it might go to the library. Would it be available a week before that first public comment period? When would the materials be available? And how long at the library?
The reference to the part about having the comprehensive plan draft available for public inspection at the library takes place after the council adopts the Plan Commission's recommendation and then refers to it as the public hearing draft and then schedules the statutory required hearing. The notice at the public library is essentially in statute saying that you have to have a draft document available, for public inspection at least 30 days prior to the hearing.
So that'd be following the June 11th council meeting.
Right.
The council would, in this scenario, would adopt the recommended plan amendment document from the Planning Commission and create this public hearing. So that's the point at which it would be officially placed on file with the library as well.
Right.
I mean, I suppose it would be possible that if we wanted to, we could put the PowerPoint there, but then if we change it, it might be confusing to people.
Yeah, up until that point, everything is kind of preliminary. It's still essentially a work in progress until the Plan Commission makes a recommendation and the council accepts that recommendation and creates the draft. It's kind of there's an attempt in statute, I think, to have a pretty bright line so you can define this is the document being discussed.
And it would be the same thing if we're working on our social media policy and that was incorporated in here. If that's approved through the course of this process, we would certainly put updates on there as well. But right now, it hasn't reached council yet. We're actually talking about it Wednesday at our leadership. And we anticipate that will be at CACP, which is the first week in May. So if it goes well there, it could be at a first and second reading at council sometime in May. If it needs to be sent back to committee, we're looking probably June, July maybe, but I'm pretty optimistic that we're pretty close to having it the way we want it. So it's really hard for us to commit when it'll be on the social media site because our policy hasn't been approved yet. Any other questions or comments? So we have the document that was in the packet. We have the alternate language. Do you guys have a preference? Or I know you really probably haven't had a whole lot of time to digest it.
Are you looking for a motion?
I would be if you're ready. Go ahead.
As I understood it, this seems to cover pretty much everything that we discussed at council. I don't see where anything is missed. So I would,
Which sheet you looking at?
just, with what you've done here.
The stuff in the packet?
Yep, the stuff in the packet.
Okay.
So it looks like it's got everything covered. So I'm comfortable with moving this forward to council, and I'd make that recommendation.
For what? For the document that was in the packet?
Right,
Okay,
as presented in the packet.
okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Any questions or comments on that?
Just a question, on these 2 sheets, are they considered to be part of the packet?
I was just going to clarify the language on the schedule first of all. I would suggest that the draft document in the packet include this updated
schedule.
schedule.
That would have been my next motion, basically.
Okay.
So you want to amend, or do you want to
Well-
approve it and then approve this
I was gonna do
separately?
it as an amendment, but we can do it that way too, I suppose.
Whatever you'd like to do,
That's fine.
okay? Just the schedule, okay?
So, yeah, with the schedule and the documentation, alternate language to consider, it's fine, included in the packet,
So you're going to include both pieces?
both pieces in the packet. That's what you're asking for, right, Rodney?
I was asking initially just related to the schedule.
Okay.
I wanted
Then
to
that's fine,
kind
too.
of separate the two out. I think there might be merit in having the schedule contemplated separately.
That's fine,
Um,
do it that way.
It's your motions and the like, but even if we use the.
Looking for your help, so that's fine.
No, it's all fine. The schedule I walked through, the correction on that would be recognizing the regular plan commission June
10th.
10th instead of the 3rd, so,
And then we're looking at the 6 o'clock starting times for the plan commission meetings.
yep.
Okay,
So,
It would include that then. The draft,
so you're making a motion to just
the
include
draft schedule,
add this schedule to the material?
the documentation, right?
Okay,
okay. Are you okay with that, Matt?
Yeah, and that's with the corrected dates and sometimes
Yep.
edits.
Okay,
That's part of the first motion?
yeah,
This is in-
right? That's part of the first motion, it's not an amendment, right?
No, just do it as a motion.
Okay, okay, so we have a motion to approve what was in the packet originally with the draft schedule that was handed out tonight.
That would show start time at 6 o'clock on it.
Yep, with the date changed. Yep. Does anybody have any questions about any of that? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None opposed, that carries.
so was there any interest in adding,
That leaves us with this sheet.
Yes, so one thing that would help me, is it says alternate language to consider. So which language is being replaced with this? Because it's really kind of a different.
Yeah.
I think it's very informative. And I don't know if it necessarily needs to replace anything else. I think it could be an accompaniment as much as but if it is alternate, I guess I just need clarification on what's being taken out to be replaced with this versus this is just further clarification.
don't focus on the heading.
Okay.
I put the heading on there just to recognize some additional language had been supplied that you could either incorporate in totality or in piece into this section 4 of the existing document.
If you think it's useful just for background, then just think of it more in terms of a supplemental information.
Yeah, I think it's good lead-in to the visual representation of those changes through the comprehensive plan map documents. And, because some people look at things visually with the maps, and some people want to read about it, and I think the two together go well. I see it as an accompaniment more than a replacement of any other language that's already in there.
Yeah, I would have suggested just calling it additional language to consider as opposed to alternate language.
So really the question is this is going to be at council tomorrow night. Do you want to include this or with the change in the title?
Well, the title wouldn't even be on here.
Oh, okay.
We would, if this is added, we'd slip it into section 4. We'd give them a clean document tomorrow night if that's the direction of the commission.
So move.
Okay.
Okay, so there's a motion to do that. Did you catch that, Michael?
Yep.
And a second by Jensen. Any questions or comments on that? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None opposed, that carries. All right, thank you. All right, where are we at here? That was 7. Is that 7 and 8?
8 is separate.
Okay, so 8 is a request by Forward Development Group to introduce the proposed Kettle Park West Phase 2 North Addition final plat.
The developers are here, and I apologize for not having the ability to put it on your screen, but this is really just an introduction of the final plat, and I think it's a very good document to begin to really visualize the scope or the Scale of this is much smaller than it may seem. If you look at the one document that shows Phase 2, it's really the northern end, as we've described, all of Oak Opening Drive, if you will, and the parkland dedication. So maybe Jim can enlighten you, and I know it's in your packets, I just can't get it on the screen.
What this is the next step in the rezoning and land division process, creating lots that are consistent with the plan as it exists now. Not talking about the amendment, but it's just that 18 lots across the north and Oak Opening Drive, which are, as we determined, in the discussions over the past 6 or 7 months, that area is consistent with the current plan. They're all single family, and it begins to establish where the new park site would be towards the, and the new park site, or the big park site, is consistent, because there's already a park shown in there, in that general area in the current plan. So this is just kind of the mechanics of getting through this first land division and rezoning step allows FDG to begin work on this next iteration of the plan, and then concurrently noted you're amending the plan, and that they should all catch up with each other by the end of the summer.
Any questions or comments on this? Were you all able to find the map in there?
Just, it would help me if because there's a few maps in there.
Right.
I want to make sure I'm looking at the right one. So, because we have Exhibit B, which is of the larger development, but then you said we're zeroing in on a specific area. So I just want to make sure I'm looking at the right spot.
Did you include the preliminary plat, Rodney, in the?
This one?
So the document that I think is best to focus on, the title on the top of the document is labeled Kettle Park West North Edition. So it looks like a
looks
lot
like a
layout.
plat.
Looks like a plat.
It's not colored, it just looks like a
Not
plat.
colored, it's just a graphical. It's a 3-page document. Well,
Keep going.
There you go.
Okay.
if you get to the one that looks like this,
All right.
doesn't that look just like the video?
All right, now I think I'm on the same page.
It's just farther away.
Right.
All right. So along Aspen Trail there.
Yes.
Correct.
And so the second page of that document really just shows the blow-up of the
Okay.
lots on the northern section.
All right.
So basically, this is approved as far as the plat, and this part's really not changing, right?
Right, this is consistent with the
Current
the
comp plan.
current comprehensive plan.
Yeah. So that's why this part is being separated from the comp plan amendment. So in theory, they could start building on this spot here.
Yeah, after the rezoning takes place and the land division takes place, and you work out with the developer and developer's agreement and that sort of thing, so.
Right.
Okay. Then I just have one question, and
Sure.
this is probably something I should have picked up along the way, but can you refresh my memory about Outlot 1 that's on that corner in terms of?
Yeah, Outlot 1 was, in the current comprehensive plan, that's shown as multifamily,
Yep.
an MR10.
Mhm.
And so we said, okay, because the nuances of platting law, we can't create that as unplatted just because of the way the lot lines work out. So that's an outlot that just stays an outlot until the plan gets amended. And then it'll be replatted as,
Yes, to
5
be
or 6
consistent
lots.
with the rest of these.
right.
Okay, that's what I wanted to make sure I was on the same page.
Yeah.
Good.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions or comments about it? So are we taking action on this one, or we're just trying to get you guys? We may have this discussion at a future meeting, because
In
we're
the-
gonna have a couple.
In
Little
the
planning.
next several weeks, there'll be the formal rezoning, public hearing, and preliminary plat hearing. It's here as an introduction, and it's also here just to make sure everyone understands that these are, the comprehensive plan amendment and this plat are two separate items, and we have to approach them in separate calendars.
Right. And what I want to share with you is we have council tomorrow night, and then next week is our reorganizational meeting, and then the following week will be city council with the new members. And so once we get into May, at that May meeting we talked about earlier, we're going to have at least one new commissioner here, and we're going to have 4 or 5, 4. I think we'll have 3 new council members and 1 that's been on council for about a month. So a lot of this you may have to go over again, just so you guys know.
Be a good chance to keep the conversation going here, so everyone's on
Yeah.
the same page.
So don't lose these materials, we're going to be looking at them again. So that was really the purpose of this tonight, was so you guys could understand going forward the difference between what we're doing the comp plan amendment for and really what is already approved. And so we're going down 2 separate, rails here basically, to get the whole entire project approved here so these guys can hopefully move forward. I think it's a good plan. Alderperson Jensen, did you have something?
I was just going to say, every time I see it, the new iteration of this plan, there seems to be, minor improvements, and each time it looks better. I'm pleased.
Yeah, and there's been a lot of input from, obviously, the Plan Commission, City Council, Park and Rec especially. We had 2 meetings with them just to talk about how it would look if we remove the parkland outside of the housing, what that would look like, the trail systems. We also talked to Stoughton Utilities about the connection points and where they would be putting utilities, and it would make more sense just to connect some of the roads that maybe at one point we were looking at cul-de-sacs. So there's been a lot of internal and external feedback already just to get us to this point. And it's just really a matter of getting everybody caught up and on the same page, and the community as well. Anything else? Any questions while these guys are here? Go ahead.
Just one more in the interest of being on the same page.
Sure.
So I'll show you visually. Is this then the most current concept plan here?
Yes.
Okay. So this is, if we look at these, it's kind of the sequence of how they've
Right.
changed.
Kind of morphed from that plan that had cul-de-sacs in it, and then,
Yep, to then this one. I
well,
think
that was actually the original one.
This is the original one here?
That had the big park in there, then the park was
Oh, yes.
moved.
Okay.
Then the park shifted, and then we began to say, we need to have a little bit more logical, efficient street connection, and that's when
Okay.
we came up to that one.
Because this is the first time I think I've seen where you've had these
The
here.
alley on the north side as well.
Yeah, and I like that a lot. In fact, I think I had kind of mentioned that, so that we had kind of
Yeah, it
that.
really creates a kind of a neighborhood core.
Exactly, you'd have porches facing each other.
Exactly.
So I was wondering, with this, when it says concept plan here, this still says a date of 2/12/2018. Is that,
That's incorrect.
okay, because that would help. If these are part of the public,
Yeah. Right.
would help to show-
That date is actually,
because it makes it look like this is now back
Right.
to an earlier concept, so.
Yeah.
things were moving too fast, and we forgot.
Yeah,
to
no.
correct that typo. That's
So
what-
that'll help me and everybody else kind of keep in sequence.
We'll
and I
make sure
like
that
this. I like
the
this a
date
lot.
gets corrected. And I think, I forgot when, probably February.
I know how that goes.
2nd or something.
So,
And
thank you.
that's kind of what we want to walk through at that April 22nd meeting, kind of the progression that you just mentioned. We'll get all the dates
Yeah.
right. And the question will be is, how much is enough and how much is too much? Because there's been at least, 5 or 6 different iterations of the map to get to this point. And even when I was working on this stuff for this packet, it's really evolved, and I think every step it's gotten better based on the input and the cooperation of the developers. So that's been really positive, I think, and helpful. So that's what we'll be presenting. So as we start drafting some ideas together, if you guys have anything, you can send them to Rodney, and he's going to be working with these guys to put that together. Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, item number 11 comes from the city of Stoughton for Downtown Design Overlay Zoning District, DDOZD, okay. Approval to install City Hall and McFarland State Bank signage at 216 East Main Street.
In your packet is a graphic that shows as City Hall's relocating to the new facility, the sign change that we're proposing at the intersection of Forest and Main Street. That's the sign that would still be in the downtown design overlay. We're anticipating the City Hall caption really being the prominent name of the upper part of the sign. The digital reader board that's there would still be a digital reader board. It might get enhanced to an LED. And then on the bottom, you'll note that we'll still have acknowledgement of McFarland State Bank and their drive-up banking with likely an LED readout of some sort of indicator for them to indicate their drive-through is still open. So we're just trying to prepare you for, the thought that we have related to this and kind of softening the tones a little bit of the colors. You'll recognize McFarland State Bank's colors utilize I'll say a blue, and we're trying to soften it some and then acknowledge that the McFarland State Bank would still have a presence on this corner monument and include a future LED readout of some sort related to their drive-through hours.
And this is on here because it's in the downtown.
Yeah, this particular sign location's in the downtown design overlay district. The one that sits right in front of the building, behind the alley, is not. That sign will get changed too, but it's not subject to the Plan Commission's oversight.
Yeah. And I wanted to thank Michael. I know he did a fair amount of work talking to various sign companies to get us to the point where we have something nice to look at. So thanks for that.
We're still working out very minor details, but the crux of it is this is kind of the direction we believe it's headed.
Mr. Barman.
So two questions. One, we have option 1 and option 2. So are you wanting the commission to kind of chime in on which option that we are leaning toward, or approve either one depending on whatever comes forward?
Option 2 is a little taller. They're raising it up so the McFarland Bank
Right.
sign can be seen a little
Yes.
better with plants underneath it.
I
don't know which
I would
one.
recommend 2 myself, just because in looking at the next page where you actually see the photo representation, you lose all that lower stuff of the
Yep.
sign
Mm-hmm.
in the vegetation.
Right.
It also limits what you can do with vegetation underneath, so.
Correct.
I like the taller one better, if we're actually,
We're seeking that type of input.
okay.
Thank you.
And then the other, and again, this is something I probably should know more about, but in terms of just general branding for the city, I haven't really paid attention to whether or not the city has a particular font that we use in consistent places, or whether there's colors. So I guess I would ask whether or not the way we're presenting Stoughton City Hall here is consistent with a chosen font that we are using in other places as part of branding, and if these are the Stoughton colors. And I didn't know whether or not we incorporate any kind of logo image into this.
Those are all great questions that we don't have great answers to. There isn't a particular
Okay.
font, if you will. So the clock tower,
Yeah,
it's truly kind of the icon of the community. It almost seems a little odd putting that icon here.
yeah,
So that's why we didn't include it as a graphic on here, knowing our icon is just up the street.
Right.
But we did think that the uppercase first letters and the lowercase subsequent letters of each word probably was a little better display. So if you will, the monument face that's on the one where that shows the size scale, we were leaning towards that. Again, we're not married to any particular color. Michael was out even trying to grab a little bit of the color off of the clock tower, to get some.
purple and white.
Purple and white was mentioned, but I think we were trying to grab something more to our downtown character.
Yeah.
So, input's still open, we're open to dialogue, but
Has there been conversation, just more broadly in terms of city branding? I mean, 'cause I guess I'd want it to be consistent with other conversations that the city might have in terms of presentation. And I agree that it would probably look a little bit odd if the not corporate, but the municipal logo was the clock tower.
right.
It doesn't necessarily fit in this location, but I know that the font on this first page with option 1, option 2,
Yep.
probably easier to read for passing vehicles.
Yeah,
But I think the font on the next page is probably more consistent with the historic downtown. It has a little bit more of that
Yeah.
historic feel to it.
yeah.
So I think that's kind of in this case, it's large enough that I think it still reads well. So I would probably lean toward the font that's used on the next page with the gentleman with his hands in his pockets. As a font, but again, I would want a font that we consistently use elsewhere in city branding.
So you're talking about the white outline?
The one down, that one there.
Yeah.
I have to suggest that there isn't a specific font that's been branded across departments or across the city. Senior Center and others have utilized different fonts for different, so we haven't reached that point at this.
This could be the beginning.
That's what I'm
It could be,
thinking.
it could be,
Yeah.
yeah.
Alderperson
For a
Jensen?
logo, we could go ahead and put Mayor Tim's picture.
There you go. There you go.
I'm the guy with the hands in the pocket. That'll be the logo.
No, I just wanted to agree with Commissioner Bartman. Number 2, I think, is the best choice. Raises it up, makes it a little more prominent. Because moving this, I think this is a big move, obviously, moving City Hall there. So people are used to going down to the clock tower, to that City Hall.
Put it on autopilot, you know where you're
Yep,
gonna end up.
Exactly. So I think it would be important that we give it some prominence.
Okay.
We like all the comments we've received here.
Yep.
Does raising it present any visual problems, blocking of view, anything of that nature that anybody's?
Not that I'm aware of for the small
I think
change
it's far
here.
enough off the
Right.
road.
I don't think we have that issue.
Added cost for somebody.
Yeah. Yeah, so that would be a McFarland State Bank effort. So, because, it would be really to display their signage more than ours at this point. We've been trying to work collaboratively to recognize and acknowledge their need for signage here, and not to lose sight of the prominent City Hall message that we need to have there as well. The community message board, I think, is a great opportunity that we have now. I mean, our senior center has one, but I think it's just another opportunity for us to have some type of message that might be appropriate for the entire community to be displayed here.
Are there any changes to lighting? Is that going to stay lit? Is it, I don't know if there's bulbs in there that still work, or is it going to be,
It'll be backlit internally.
I'm wondering how it's going to look with the tan background, but that'd be fine. And I guess I do agree with the things said previously, the option 2. I would agree that's the way to go.
Any other comments? So what are we looking for? Go ahead.
Would this be moving to finance for funding, or how's that gonna be handled?
We have a budget.
It's budgeted through that
Through that allowance,
allowance, okay.
In the
no,
CIP.
there was a budget amount for the transition to that building. This is incorporated as part of that.
And if the taller sign would benefit McFarland State Bank, would they be contributing to?
Absolutely.
Okay. Good.
We're working with them.
So is there?
Just like the digital part for the open, I mean, that's a cost associated with their signage. And so we certainly anticipate working with them to have them fund applicable portions of the sign for them.
Should use some sort of Norwegian font, right?
Which one is that?
Okay, so are we looking for a motion here?
We are.
Yeah. So we need a motion to approve, basically installing a new sign.
Approve option 2. And I'd make that motion.
Option 2, you said?
Option 2.
Option 2 with font of essentially option 3.
With the appropriate font.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Is there a second? Second? Okay. Any more discussion on that? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None opposed? That carries.
Thank you.
Future agenda items?
Public participation.
Lots of it.
Comprehensive plan amendment, Kettle Park West. Those are the big ones.
Yeah. If anybody has a conflict with the dates, you could just let us know right away, so we can at least make sure we have a quorum, but hopefully everybody can make it. And any ideas that you have certainly be appreciated. Looking for one more motion.
Move to adjourn?
Second.
All right. Discussion, hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None opposed, we're adjourned, thank you.
Going on watchdog.